Just about every client that we work with asks us, how do you deal with the time zone issues when you're working with offshore developers? And in my experience, this issue has actually become a little bit overblown. There are some projects that are so complicated that you have to be constantly whiteboarding and collaborating on fancy technical stuff with your developers. But 90% of the time, you can pretty easily overcome the time zone differences. What you don't want to do is get trapped into thinking that the way to overcome the time zone differences is to force a huge daily meeting and just get around the time zone. It seems like a good idea. Clients say, every morning I want to have a big Skype chat with all of my developers, and everybody's going to talk, and we're going to come together, and it's going to be great. The problem with that is that it can be very useful, but it's always going to be very expensive. It can be very boring, and sometimes you've got people that are not native English speakers, and it can be stressful for them, and it could just be a big waste of time. So I encourage clients to think, what is the objective? What problem are we trying to solve? The problem is not that the Earth is round and there's a time zone problem. The problem is that we don't want to lose cycles. That is really the issue that we're trying to overcome. What I don't want to have happen is that some issue comes up in the middle of the day for my developers, and I'm sleeping, so they need to tell me about it right away, but they don't want to wake me up. Now they go home for the day, and they're home getting ready to go to bed. I'm just waking up, so we've missed a whole cycle. I may not hear about this until tomorrow. That lost cycle is very, very expensive. That's what we really want to avoid in offshore development. So how do we do that? The first thing is just a simple best practice. You want to have very solid, very fast, very thorough communication all the time. Answer your emails right away and be sure to answer every little detail in them. Right there, that's going to close the gap considerably. But sometimes you will need to communicate with your developers. So what we do is we have a standing meeting time. We don't necessarily have a meeting, but there is a time every day when everyone on the team has agreed to be online using something like Skype or Google Hangout so that we can see that everybody's online. And if anyone has anything to say, they're going to say, hey, there's an issue that I want to raise, or there's something important happening, or I have a question. Everyone knows that they must raise their voice at that time. The object being not to lose the development cycle. If there is no such issue that needs to be raised, then fine, everybody can keep working. You don't need to sit through a long, boring meeting just for everyone to say everything is okay. So, for example, with my guys, we have a standing meeting every day at 9 o'clock in the morning. Every day at 9 a.m., I expect to see my entire team on Skype. I want to see all their names, and I want them to be at the keyboard and ready to go, so that if I say something like, hey guys, there's an issue, they're going to answer right away. They also have agreed that if they have an issue that they need to raise to me, or they have a question, they're going to do it at that time. If nobody says anything, we know that we're not going to lose a cycle, nobody has any issues, and everything is cool. And if there is an issue, it's going to get raised. The guys know to speak up, and they've been trained to do that. So the objective is not to fix the time zone. The objective is not to lose cycles. And by having great communication and having a standing meeting and teaching everyone on your team to use that meeting, not just to spend an hour chatting, but to raise any issues, you will avoid losing cycles. And beyond that, just have great communication all the time, and you're going to be just fine.